Have you ever wondered what really separates the wildly successful from, well, everyone else? It's almost never some big, flashy moment of genius. As we're going to see in this breakdown of James Clear's Atomic Habits, the secret is usually something way smaller, something you might not even notice at first. Okay, let's kick things off with a story. For almost 100 years, the British cycling team was, well, they were kind of mediocre. I mean, since 1908, they'd only managed to snag one single Olympic gold medal. And in the biggest race of them all, the Tour de France, it was even worse. In 110 years, not a single British cyclist had ever won it. It got so bad that a top bike company literally refused to sell them bikes because they were worried it would make their brand look bad. Out.
But then, something just clicked. Get this, between 2007 and 2017, just one decade, that same team, the one nobody took seriously, won an incredible 178 world championships. They grabbed 66 Olympic and Paralympic gold medals, and they won the Tour de France 5 times. We're talking about one of the most mind-blowing turnarounds in the history of sports.
So, what was their secret, right? How does a team of just okay athletes suddenly become this unstoppable force? Did they just stumble upon a secret group of superstars? Nope, not at all. Their secret was actually something way simpler and honestly a lot more powerful. So to get to the bottom of this, we're going to break down the main ideas from Atomic Habits. First, we'll look at the power of tiny gains. Then, we'll dive into the 4 laws for changing your behavior. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
All right, so here it is. Their secret was a philosophy called the aggregation of marginal gains. The guy in charge, Dave Brailsford, had this crazy idea. What if they could just improve everything by just 1%? He figured all those tiny gains would add up to something huge. And I mean everything. They redesigned the bike seats to be more comfortable. They brought in a surgeon to teach a cyclist the best way to wash their hands to cut down on getting sick. They even figured out the exact mattress and pillow that gave each individual rider the best possible night's sleep. They looked at everything.
And that right there is the perfect example of an atomic habit. It's a tiny change, right? The smallest possible piece of a bigger system. Think about it. Atoms are the building blocks for molecules, and in the same way, atomic habits are the building blocks for incredible results. By themselves, they look like nothing, totally insignificant. But when you put them together, they compound into something amazing.
I love this quote. It just nails the feeling, doesn't it? You know, you can be working on a new habit for days, weeks, maybe even months, and you see nothing. It feels like you're just spinning your wheels. It's so frustrating. But that big breakthrough moment, the one where the rock finally splits, that only happens because of all those little taps that came before it. It's a great reminder that mastery takes a whole lot of patience. Okay, so how do we actually build these habits that lead to that big breakthrough? Well, James Clear gives us a really simple but super powerful framework he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. You can think of it as a user's manual for creating good habits and, just as importantly, getting rid of the bad ones. So, law number 1, make it obvious. This is all about the little triggers or cues that kickstart our habits. We tend to think that building good habits is all about having amazing willpower. But it turns out so much of what we do is just an automatic response to what's around us. Our environment is like this invisible hand, quietly guiding our behavior all day long. Check out this great example from a hospital cafeteria. Some researchers wanted to see if they could get people to drink more water without actually telling them to. Their solution was so simple. They just added bottles of water to all the refrigerators and put them right there next to all the sugary sodas. And what happened? Water sales shot up by over 25%, and soda sales dropped by more than 11%. And here's the crucial part. Nobody had to try harder. Nobody needed more motivation or willpower. People's choices changed automatically just because the cue, the visible option, changed. You can use this at home too. Like if you want to play more guitar, don't shove it in the closet. Put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room. Make it obvious. Okay, that brings us right to law number 2. Make it attractive. Our brains are basically reward-seeking machines. They release a chemical called dopamine when we anticipate something pleasurable, and that makes us want to do it. So, the more attractive something seems, the more likely we are to do it. The real hack here is to link something you need to do with something you already want to do. ABC is a master of this. Remember their Thursday night shows? They didn't just advertise the shows themselves. They branded the entire night as TGIT, Thank God It's Thursday.
Their ads were all about kicking back, pouring a glass of wine, making some popcorn, and just chilling out. They were bundling the habit they wanted you to form, watching their shows, with all these other things people already love doing. They made watching TV an attractive ritual.
And that flows perfectly into law number 3, make it easy. Let's face it, we are all wired to be a little lazy. It's about conserving energy. We're always going to drift towards the path of least resistance, but instead of fighting that instinct, we can actually use it to our advantage. The goal is to make your good habits as frictionless as possible and your bad habits a total pain.
So there was this awesome experiment a professor at the University of Florida did with his photography class. He divided the students into 2 groups. The first was the quantity group. They were going to be graded on the sheer volume of work they did. Turn in 100 photos, you get an A. Simple. The other group was the quality group. They only had to produce 1 single photo all semester, but it had to be basically perfect to get an A.
So who do you think produced the best photos? Well, here's the surprising part. All the best photos, by far, came from the quantity group. How is that possible? Well, they weren't sitting around trying to come up with the perfect shot. They were just shooting. They were constantly taking pictures, experimenting, making mistakes, and learning. They were getting their reps in. The quality group, they got paralyzed by perfection. They spent all their time theorizing and ended up with almost nothing. The lesson here is huge. Make it easy to just start. Focus on taking action, not just planning to.
And that brings us to our final law, number 4, make it satisfying. This might be the most important rule of them all. Our brains are hardwired for immediate gratification. We repeat things that feel good right now. The biggest problem with building good habits is that the payoff is often way down the road. But for bad habits, the reward is instant. So the trick is to find a way to make your good habits feel satisfying in the moment.
And this is where the brilliant paperclip strategy comes in. The story goes, there was this young stockbroker who started every single day with 2 jars on his desk. In one jar, he'd put 120 paperclips. The other jar was empty. His rule was simple. Every time he made a sales call, he'd move 1 paperclip from the full jar over to the empty one.
Notice, he wasn't worried about whether the calls were successful or not. His only job was to move the paper clips. That simple visual proof of his progress was super satisfying and kept him going. And the result? It's pretty staggering. Within 18 months, he was bringing in over $5 million for his firm.
That little act of moving a paperclip created this powerful, satisfying feedback loop. It gave him a win, a reason to keep going even on the tough days. You know, it's the same idea behind how Jerry Seinfeld writes jokes. He has this calendar, and his only goal each day is to write, so he can put a big X on that day. After a few days, you've got a chain, and your only job becomes, don't break the chain. That satisfaction of seeing the streak continue is a reward in itself.
All right, so we've seen how these tiny atomic habits can compound into something massive. So let's wrap this all up with a quick summary of the 4 laws, a simple toolkit you can start using like today. So when you're trying to build a new habit, just run through these 4 steps. First, make it obvious. How can you redesign your environment to make it easier? Second, make it attractive. How can you bundle it with something you actually enjoy? Third, make it easy. How can you lower the barrier to entry and just focus on getting reps in, not being perfect? And finally, make it satisfying. What's that immediate little reward you can give yourself? What's your paperclip?
And that really leaves us with the most important question of all. This isn't about some huge revolutionary change you have to make overnight. It's all about starting small. So I leave you with this to think about. What's the one tiny habit, that one small change, that if you started it today, would have the power to completely transform your life 1 year from now?